Day 4 of the Sarah Boone trial was intense. From expert testimonies on domestic abuse to critical debates on evidence, there's a lot to unpack. Today, we saw the defense making their final push to prove Sarah Boone's claims of self-defense, while the prosecution pushed back hard on inconsistencies. Let's break down the biggest moments in court. The day kicked off with testimonies from two key deputies, Deputy Ramirez and Deputy Alden. They were among the first officers on the scene after the incident between Sarah Boone and Jorge Torres. Both deputies described seeing injuries on both Sarah and Jorge, but here's where things get interesting. Deputy Ramirez testified that Sarah Boone questioned her arrest, asking, "Because I fought back?" A significant moment since it hints at Boone's defense strategy, self-defense. During cross-examination, the prosecution focused on clarifying that Ramirez wasn't the one who decided to arrest Boone. Deputy Alden followed with similar testimony, but the prosecution grilled him on body camera footage. Could this footage tell a different story? This back and forth laid the foundation for the day's focus. Was Sarah Boone the victim of abuse or the perpetrator? Next up, the defense introduced their expert witness, Dr. Michael Brandon, a forensic psychologist specializing in battered spouse syndrome. He explained how the cycle of domestic violence could impact a victim's behavior, particularly in situations like Sarah Boone's. Dr. Brandon discussed how fear, learned helplessness, and trauma could drive someone to act out of self-defense. He also touched on how substance abuse and personality disorders can complicate these situations. The defense hopes this expert testimony will paint a picture of Sarah Boone as a long-term victim, but the prosecution wasn't buying it. They went straight for the credibility of Dr. Brandon's analysis, pointing out that he never evaluated Sarah Boone personally. They raised doubts about Boone's self-reported history of abuse, especially given her alcohol use disorder and potential for impression management, suggesting she could be manipulating the narrative. One of the most dramatic moments came when the defense introduced two videos from Sarah Boone's phone. One shows Jorge Torres holding a bat, and the other, him striking a TV. These videos are crucial in backing Boone's claims of Jorge's violent behavior. The defense aims to prove a pattern of aggression from Jorge, suggesting that Boone's actions were in response to ongoing abuse. But as always, the prosecution was quick to highlight that these videos don't show the full story. After the lunch break, the defense brought in another psychologist, Dr. Julie Harper. She had conducted an in-depth evaluation of Sarah Boone, diagnosing her with PTSD, depression, and alcohol use disorder, all linked to intimate partner violence. Dr. Harper emphasized how trauma can affect communication and memory, potentially explaining some of Boone's conflicting statements. But the state wasn't letting this slide. They questioned the thoroughness of Dr. Harper's evaluation, especially since she only spoke to a few people and didn't have access to some key records like text messages and DCF reports. The prosecution dug deep into these inconsistencies, particularly the gaps in Sarah's memory and her accounts of the night Jorge died. They're clearly aiming to show that Boone's story just doesn't add up. Things got heated when the defense requested the court take judicial notice of two no-contact orders issued against Jorge Torres in previous cases. They argued this was evidence of his controlling behavior. The state objected at first, claiming it was hearsay and irrelevant. After a long debate, they eventually dropped their objection, and the court accepted the documents. This was a win for the defense, but it's unclear how much it'll sway the jury. So what's next? The defense is set to rest their case after consulting with Sarah Boone, and then the prosecution will present their rebuttal. We're getting closer to closing arguments, and the jury will soon have to weigh some incredibly complex questions, especially regarding self-defense and battered spouse syndrome. Will Sarah Boone's claims of abuse hold up, or will the prosecution prove this was something far darker? We'll be here to cover every moment. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any updates. Thanks for watching. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the defense has made their case, or is the prosecution poking too many holes in Boone's story? I can't wait to hear what you think.